Malley.
Yep, Meryl.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. You don't have to look hard to see that Labor doesn't give a hoot about regional infrastructure investment. In fact, Labor created a funding vacuum for more than 2 years, where regional councils and community organisations have been unable to access federal funding for community infrastructure projects. Labor scrapped the Coalition's Building Better Regions Fund in February 2022. Labor's Replacement Growing Regions Fund won't see funding hit the ground until April 2024. That's 2 years. Community infrastructure projects, therefore, will languish for at least 2 years. The pain for regional communities doesn't stop there. In my home state of Victoria, Labor announced $2.57 billion worth of infrastructure spending in their May budget. However, $2.2 billion of that has been gobbled up by the Melbourne Suburban Rail Link. Funny about that. Exempted from Minister King's Razor Gang review. Other projects for Victoria include $150 million for the Camerons Lane interchange at Beveridge, 55 kilometres from the centre of Melbourne, and $57 million went to Ison Road Overpass, less than 35 kilometres from central Melbourne. That means 93.6% of the budgeted infrastructure spending the member for Ballarat and member for infrastructure, Catherine King, announced for Victoria will be spent within 55 kilometres of the centre of Melbourne. Regional Victoria was left with a paltry 6.3% of the total budget. That's no accident. Labor doesn't hold seats in outer regional Victoria. And where do they spend there? What do they spend there? Nothing. It is beyond contempt. More than 200 days after the minister announced her 90-day infrastructure review, the government's response was more cuts and delays to critical infrastructure projects across the country. $7.4 billion worth of projects have been cancelled. 50 major projects, let alone, as the member for Riverina has stated, potentially 252 projects all up that have been axed by the Albanese government. In my electorate, the critical Swan Hill Bridge, incredibly important to that community, $6 million has been allocated out of the 60 that we had committed to over a number of years to planning. There's no guarantee the other $54 million is going to be committed to the Swan Hill community. It is a serious disgrace. In Labor's scorched earth approach to clinging to power, they are hammering the regions with the heaviest hits from their cuts, with regional infrastructure projects cut by 30%. Worse still, this chaotic government is cutting future funding for projects to a 50-50 basis. This is instead of contributing to major regional infrastructure projects on an 80-20 basis. You see, the Coalition understands that regional communities do not have the dollars, the councils don't, no big businesses out in the country have the ability to put in a 50-50 split on major infrastructure. That simply leaves regional communities out in the cold. It is an absolute disgrace. The kind of funding that cities have cannot be compared with regions. To add insult to injury, it looks as though Labor has cut the Roads of Strategic Importance program, which invested in upgrades to many secondary highways and freight routes in my electorate, which are critical to moving agriculture and resources products from ports to ports and markets. And tourism. Once again, regional communities pay the price for Labor's chaotic and destructive policies. These programs are wholly or partly in my electorate. What am I supposed to tell my constituents facing chaos on their unsafe roads and losing out under the Labor left, right and centre? I drive those roads. I know how dangerous they are, and the number of B-doubles and triples that traverse down those highways. It is appalling that Labor has no idea how bad it is. I would invite the minister to come driving up into Mallee sometime and try to stay safe on those roads. She needs to do a lot more to put her eye on regional communities.